Hello everybody and welcome. Just to begin with, I'm sorry if my voice might sound a little funny. I've got some bronchitis, but just bear with me. So today we're going to be looking at logical fallacies and using our critical thinking skills to identify these logical fallacies within a conspiracy theory. So today we're going to be looking at the dark matter catspiracy. And so we're going to be going through each of this website's pages and looking at the sections, identifying the main logical problems with these sections. And why those problems may have arisen, because oftentimes logical fallacies, they sound right, and they help create an atmosphere of apparent credibility, which is why conspiracy theories tend to rely on them so very heavily. Alright, so let's begin. So, with the feline mystery, this is a pretty short section, but straight away we start to see the mention of ghosts and ultraviolet light, and this is unexplained. And then later it says these answers don't quite add up. An answer to strange cat behavior, but it's not explained why these answers don't add up, and it's not explained why the new answer is in any way better. There's the implication that they'll get to that, but it's quite simple, and it's setting us up for a false dilemma, which is when you oversimplify something to the point of making it one side versus another, and sticking with that one side because of that oversimplification. So in a potentially dark matter, this is pretty decent. So this uses sources to credibly summarize a scientific concept. But what we see here is a bit of a hasty generalization, which is pretty common when you get unscientific sources talking about a scientific concept. So science can be sort of complex in how the theories are presented and how they interact with other types of theories and scientific concepts. And so when you take something like that and you try to simplify it, you can sometimes leave out some of the crucial components of the concept. And that is often done either on purpose or unconsciously, because it can help make a point if you leave out something conveniently. I don't think that's what was done in this case, but it is still a rather simplified version of what dark matter is and what we actually know about it. Okay, so the catspiracy. This one's kind of funny. It's got two problems with it. One of the biggest problems is that this whole section is one slippery slope, which is the logical fallacy of just things over-escalating. One thing leads to the next, and so it must lead to next, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so we see that here in that, there's beings made of dark matter. Our cats see them. They're in our home. Scientists know about them, but they're not telling us. It's one pretty big slippery slope here. The second thing is that this whole conspiracy, as an explanation, goes entirely against Occam's razor, and that is the principle that, in general, the simplest explanation is usually the right one, and this explanation of cats looking at things that we don't notice ourselves is by no means simple. Alright, so moving on to the evidence. Weak explanation. So this one also has a couple logical fallacies going for it. To begin with, it really begs the question. It's making a lot of assumptions. It's asserting that felines must be looking at something humanoid. A flash of light would not produce this kind of reaction, for example. There's not a citation there saying, there's no cat behaviorist citation of that supporting that is in any way true. And the rest of this whole section is really based on these unsighted assumptions, and so it is begging the question and using roundabout logic. Additionally, it presents a false dilemma, because when you get into the meat of it, it really gets into ghosts versus dark matter beings, and that is clearly a vast oversimplification of what cats may or may not actually be seeing. Okay, the clear truth. Now this one is potentially probably the worst logical fallacy, and a pretty common one. So the main one here is ad hominem, which is when you attack an opposing party's character rather than their rationale. And we see that in things like politics, things like that. And so here it really is sort of putting down the scientific community in order to say, okay, look at that, so-called evidence. Don't listen to that. Listen to me, type of thing. And that is quite a logical fallacy. There's also plenty of oversimplification in this section. All right, the implications. So this section, once again, really begs the question. So it starts out with the assumption that we are on board with cats seeing things made of dark matter, and it just keeps rolling from there and keeps going back to that assumption to make its point. And it's also kind of a slippery slope. I mean, just listen to this question. Are our feline friends concerned and maybe even trying to warn us? We won't have any answers until we accept the truth and scientists begin to research these questions in earnest. So that vaguity really helps conclude this whole theory, and begging the question is really quite a favorite for conspiracy theories, as it helps to create this internal logic which seems consistent even if not credible. All right, the last page, the works cited page. So we can see here that there is good citations. The citations have been made, but what we see when we look at them is that they are not citations that support the main conspiracy theory. They're citations about the opposing arguments, and when they were cited in the previous pages, they were more used using the straw man logical fallacy, which is misrepresenting an opposing position, and then also they're used with hasty generalization. And so that's really the thing with citations, is that it's not just one thing to cite it, it also has to be the information that you are citing needs to be used properly. And so it's always important to critique the works cited page and what is really being cited. All right, so to conclude, in this little conspiracy theory critique, we have looked at the logical fallacies of hasty generalization, ad hominem, slippery slope, false dilemmas, begging the question, and we also discussed Occam's razor. So next time we come across theories such as these, we can think back on these logical fallacies, and though something may seem credible and may cite things and may have a logic, that doesn't mean that they can't really be picked apart for their credibility and their empirical value. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this critique of a dark matter catspiracy.